Greetings, this is Sweet Beats, doing just a little impromptu introduction to my Studer 928 mixing console I recently picked up. Really happy about it. We're out here in my detached garage space, which will eventually become recreation room, music, recording, that sort of thing. And dog is helping us. So we'll get this turned on. I have it set up to kick on in sections so that the master section boots up last. And so this is a modular concept console. Frame buckets, like sections of the frame, come in 12 units and 16 units. This one has 12 units down here, and then 16, and then 16. 12 mono mic line input modules, and 16 stereo line input modules that can either be mono line or stereo line. And then our master section down here, little built-in patch field. The meter bridge is completely modular. Studer offers quite an array of meter units for different purposes, and any of them will fit in here. This particular 928 is fitted with a meter module for all 10 of the aux buses. There's 2 stereo and 6 mono aux buses, and then subgroup meters that also include gain reduction meters for the onboard compressors, and then 2 stereo meter packs, one for each of the 2 independent master buses that also have gain reduction meters for the onboard stereo limiters. And then mine came with a correlator meter, which is really pretty cool. You can switch it between the master A bus or the master B bus, and it'll show you how far to one side or the other the program mix is. So you can, if you choose, kind of keep that balanced. And then it's a really heavy-duty frame. Overall, I was really surprised getting it out of the van when I got it here. Like, fully loaded, I'm getting it out of the van, and there is just no flex whatsoever. It's got extruded aluminum frame members that go down throughout, and then of course all of this is the zinc plated steel. It's just really heavy duty. These covers come off. You can get to the meter bay, and then we've got the backplane, which is modular in 4 channel chunks. Master section also has these DIN 41622 connectors, or Tuchel connectors, for a lot of the input-output stuff on the master section. But then you got your key input-output stuff on easy-to-access XLR jacks. Lots of I/O options. And then we've got 32 bays that are set up for the stereo line inputs, which actually have 2 separate stereo line inputs each. So 4 sources can be hooked up to each stereo module, and you can get to any 2 of them at the most at any one time. But you can also have them be mono. And then the mic modules down at that end have mic in, line in, and direct out, all on XLR. The stereo modules are configured for direct out, so there's facilities on the modules and on the motherboard for direct out. Mine does not have the D-sub 25 connectors that would be up here at the top of the panel. that would have all the direct outs, but I can deal with that later if I actually need them, and I don't think I do. All of these D sub 9 connectors for each channel, that has a host of all kinds of stuff I'm probably never going to use. External VCA control, external mute control, remote start faculties. There's a switch on the module, an on switch, that you can start a machine or start all kinds of different things, and jumper settings determine the type of signal that comes out, whether it's a pulsed signal or a steady signal. Anyway, don't know too much about that. I suppose if one wanted to get really crazy, they could probably configure this to ARM tracks on a multi-track machine. Use the channel on switches on modules to ARM tracks, but don't need that if you have a remote. Anyway, so maybe we'll just cover the features of a mono input module and then call that good for this episode. So each mono input module has a rack of assigned switches up at the top. You've got your master A bus and master B bus. So again, completely independently assignable independent master buses with the same features on each. And then the console was designed to accommodate up to 4 subgroups. Mine is fitted with 4 subgroups, so these switches, the 5 through 8, don't do anything. But then you can, assign to any of your 4 subgroups. And then we have a bunch of crazy direct out features. You can just directly assign, there's a momentary switch to directly assign the talkback mic to the direct out. So of course the talkback mic can go to groups, it can go, there's all kinds of functions and features down in the master section for where you can send the talkback mic. But if you want to just send it through one direct out, boom, you've got it there. There's this mix minus function, which I'm not very familiar with. I think it's much more common in the broadcast world. But basically what that does is if you have the mix minus function enabled, it's possible to, through the direct out on this module, send a sum of all the other channels that have the mix minus function enabled, and then there's some other button combination. I think it said if you have sum A and mix minus, then what it does is it actually pulls a sum of all of the other mix minus enabled channels and sends that minus this channel through the direct out. So much more broadcast related, but who knows, I might come up with some crazy way to use that. And then we've got our phantom power, and then we can, there's a switch to send the onboard tone generator just to the direct out of just this channel. And again, much like the talkback mic, there's all kinds of features for routing the tone generator. But if you wanted to just go to one direct out jack, boom, right there, and it sends a fixed level out. Then we have a line switch to route the line input as the input to the module, and if it's up and off, then it's the mic input is live. Thankfully, there are separate trim controls for mic and for line, and really completely separate amps. A lot of times, the way the circuitry works is you'll have a mic head amp feeding a line amp, and then if you are enabling the line input, you're just bypassing the mic amp. This has 2 completely separate amplifiers for preamplifying the mic and bringing it to line level, and this is a separate line level amp right here. The mic amps are transformer coupled, and then I'm trying to get familiar with the circuitry of the mic amp. It's pretty unique looking. It's a nice mic amp, and the way this trim control works is rather than having a knob that controls your entire gain range, there is a rotary switch with 8 positions that sets the range from -10 to +60, and then you have a 10 dB sweep here. That makes for a much quieter mic amp across the gain range, so that's pretty nice. And then you've got a line control or a line trim that's actually center detented, so this assumes 0 dB line level that you can boost +15 or cut -15, so that's nice. And then we've got a phase reverse, and we have a low cut filter, a 75 Hertz low cut filter, and then we come to our EQ section, which has an enable switch, so you can set your EQ and then pull it out if you want, or insert it. As you can see, it's a 4-band EQ, sweep type filters on all 4 bands. High and low bands are shelving. So high band is from 1K to 16K, low band is from 30 Hertz to 500 Hertz, again shelving type filters, and then you've got your mid bands, your high mid from 500 to 8K, and your low mid from 125 Hertz to 2K. The mono input modules also feature a switchable cue for the center peaking bands. When the switch is out, it's a cue of 0.7, like a wider bell curve, and when you switch in the high Q filter, that sharpens the curve to a cue of 2, and so independent switchable cue for your peaking mid bands. And then we come to our aux buses. We have aux 7 and aux 8 are stereo aux buses, so you have level and pan controls, and then you've got 6 mono aux buses with a stacked pot, one aux on the collar and one aux on the knob, and they are switchable pre or post fader in pairs for the mono aux buses, and then of course the stereo for each of the stereo channels. And then we have another direct out feature right here. If you want to use aux 1, you can hit the direct out button here, and now aux 1 goes to the direct out jack on this module. So no longer does the fader feed the direct out, but now aux 1 feeds the direct out. So you can create a very specific submix that way using that function. And then we've got a pan control. So this is switchable, center detented. If the pan button is out, it sends the signal, the post fade signal, to any buses that you pick. So you could be like this, and it's going to be in the center of the stereo bus B, and also go to, hang on, not on this one. Oh yeah, that's right. And also go to groups 1 and 4. If you switch the pan control in, now of course, like most of you are familiar with, you sweep it right, it's only going to go to your even groups and the right side of the master B bus. So that's nice, gives you a little more flexibility with your routing and assigning. And then we've got a channel on switch, also known as a mute switch. So now it's live, now it's not. And we have a lamp here for external mute control. Remember those D sub 9 connectors on the back? We could have something else controlling the mute of the module. And then we have a Q function. Again, that's also known as the solo bus. There's a neat little feature with this though. If you push and hold it, it's momentary. If you tap it, it latches. So it can either be momentary or latching depending on how long you hold it. If you hold it for more than half a second, it's momentary. If less than a second, it latches. 100 millimeter Penny and Giles fader, and then we have a nice channel meter. On the mono modules, this is jumper selectable to be pre-EQ, post-EQ, or post-fader. So you can really configure what your meter tells you. And then we have 4 VCA groups. All of the faders are VCA, so there's no actual signal going through the faders, but the faders control voltage controlled amplifiers, and there's 4 groups. The master faders for those are over in the master section. So we can put this on VCA group 4. We might have several faders that are on group 4, and now one of the red faders down at the end controls the overall gain. Now, if the way the VCA works, it essentially, as you move it up and down, it doesn't move all of them the same, and then this one hits, and then this one hits, and then this one hits. If you have a mix set up, when you pull the master VCA fader down, it slowly brings these all into alignment as they hit the bottom, and then as you raise it up, it does that. So that's how VCA groups work. A little nicer than using a subgroup for controlling levels. And then the last thing, there's a channel or a start on, and again, that's related to that D sub 9 connector. Can do all sorts of different things that I probably will never use. There are other jumper settings on here for, let's see, well, there's a lot of jumper settings related to this. I mentioned the, let's see, the meter settings, and then also the direct out. There's all kinds of jumper settings for the direct out, whether it's pre-fade, post-fade, and then all sorts of things related to that mix minus direct out function. The stereo modules are quite similar, but have some really neat, unique features. Again, assign functions for both master buses and our subgroups, and again on mine these don't do anything. And then the talkback and mix minus functions, but then we have left-right switches. So if you have a stereo source plugged into a left and right input, you can pull in just the left or just the right. And then, though this doesn't work on mine because I don't have direct outs on my stereo modules, for some reason if you do this, then it flips the output of your stereo input to the direct out. So now the left input will appear on the right direct output, and the right input will appear on the left direct out. But this is how you would use it as a mono line input, is just source the left input only. Same thing, you can port the tone generator to the channel, and then this is how you select that second set of stereo inputs. So we've got one set on the top and the back, and then we've got another set on the bottom. So you could have all kinds of stuff plugged in all the time, and then be able to, at the control surface, select any one of those 4 inputs or any pair of those inputs. And then we've got a trim control, same as on the mono modules, center detented, assuming 0 dB nominal level input with 15 dB boost, 15 dB cut. Then we've got this is a cool feature on the stereo channels. This is a stereo spread control, and when switched on, you can take your stereo signal from mono to stereo to 2 times stereo. I don't know how this works, but it does work. It sounds pretty cool and will be extra fun to use on delays, reverbs, if I'm using a stereo module as an effects return, even though there are 4 fully featured stereo returns over in the master section. But this is a pretty cool thing. EQ is the same as the mono modules, but you don't have the switchable Q on the mid bands. And little difference on the pan control. You can either pan and cut one side of your stereo mix, or if you only have one input sourced, a mono input sourced to the module, place that in the stereo mix of whatever bus or buses you're assigning it to, or it's balance control between your stereo signal, and it's just plus 10 or minus 10, so that you can fine-tune the balance of your stereo source. And the rest is the same. So those are the input modules, and sometime soon we'll cover the master section. Thanks for watching.